Hi high school students, this is Mr. Slaybaugh and I'm here with the basics on what you should be looking at as a high school percussionist to be prepared. We're going to start with snare drum because it's a fundamental drum to all percussion instruments. The technique used for snare drum is replicated on multiple percussion instruments, mallet instruments, and timpani to a large extent, with minor variations. To have a good technique on snare drum is absolutely critical in order to be able to play things with a sense of comfort, timing, and precision. One of the things that happens with a lot of beginning snare drummers is that they don't understand the concept between tension and relaxation. In order to play fast, the instrument requires us to have a certain amount of relaxation. The problem is that we need to have a certain amount of tension, even what might be referred to as microtension, inside of the hand, the forearm, and the wrist, so that we have the most efficient use of our stick. So the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is the stick and give you kind of a primer on sticks. I have two different models, types of snare drum sticks in front of me here. One is made by ProMark. It is an oak stick, so it's got more weight to it, and it has a different kind of bead to it. It's got what's called a legato bead to it, and as I hold it up you can see that it has a rounded tip, but it is not round, it's oval. And the purpose of being able to play with this style of stick is that it gives you a variety of legato and staccato sounds. If you were to play flat on this portion of the stick, you're going to get a more legato sound. It's going to be a larger channel of air. You play on the tip, just lift the hair, you're going to be able to play more staccato. Another very famous brand, and it's very reputable, and I've used them for years, is made by Vic Firth. And this is the model SD1 General. He makes his sticks out of maple. The significant difference between oak, in this case this is Japanese oak, and this one, which is American maple, rock maple it's sometimes called, is that these sticks tend to be lighter. The major difference between a quality made drumstick and those sticks in the bargain bin is pretty simple. They're made with balance points. And let me demonstrate. And you even need to check this to make sure that you have a stick of similar density. But a good stick has a point where the stick can be balanced upon the finger. And it's almost always dead center in the middle of the stick. You'll find that poor quality sticks, cheaper in price perhaps, but not in, and certainly in quality, don't have a balance point. A good stick will have a balance point, and the purpose of that balance point, and you'll notice on this ProMark it's almost where the marking is here, and the purpose of this balance point is very simple. It's to allow the stick to do as much of the work as you can. So I highly recommend that you buy a quality drumstick. I like Vic Firth and I like ProMark as a personal choice. There are other brands that are excellent, but if you stick with a name brand, you're going to get a better quality stick, and it's going to last longer. These sticks are about, well, they're at least 12 years old, and I've just been very careful on these sticks not to do too many rim shots, which damage sticks, but I still have done a lot of rim shots and I've played a lot of notes out of them. And these are not quite as old, and then the rock maple's not as hard as the oak. Okay. Now let's go to grip. So I'm going to set down these. Let's go to grip real quick. I want to remind you that the grip has to be correct in order for the technique to be efficient. Efficiency of stroke. Divide the stick into 3 equal portions and place your thumb on the portion towards the butt end of the stick, so that if you were to wrap your finger around it and drive a nail through the exact center of your thumbnail, it would come out directly between these two knuckles. Wrap the fingers around the stick. A common problem. When the thumb is pushed forward, the stick goes into the fingers. When the thumb is back, the stick goes up the arm, and the first finger comes forward. Keep the first finger wrapped around. It's this point of contact, called the fulcrum, that allows for an efficient rotation of the stick. And I want you to remember that. I teach match grip not because I don't play traditional grip, but because to play traditional grip requires a certain degree of practice in how to tense and how to relax. And there's also variations in it. If you play traditional grip, it should take you a tremendous amount of time to develop dexterity and control. If you play traditional grip poorly, you'll find most people will kind of just flop it like this, and there's an effectiveness to it. It's just not efficient. So let's go to match grip. Make sure that you have a downward stroke to your surface and that your hands are not raised too high or too low. The general rule of thumb is no higher than your belly button. No higher than your belly button should be the playing surface. You should always practice on a drum pad. I prefer a drum pad over pretty much any other option. The best drum pads that I've found, and there's a number of them out there, are made by the Real Feel company. The product name is Real Feel. And when you play the drum, it feels exactly like pad, exactly like a drum. It has the same response, and it's not a dead pad. And the best part about it is that you can just carry it with you, and there's your instrument. You don't really even need the music stand. You can set it on your knee and play, and still have a very effective sound. You can also practice rim shots. Bad demonstration. You can practice rim shots with this because it's got a slightly elevated edge so that you'll get a little bit better at playing rim shots. Let's go on to the first exercise that the drumline's using here at Davis High School. It's titled FDTU, and it is simply a one-hand exercise. We have 4 strokes in snare drum. Only 4. We have a stroke that begins high and ends low. We have a stroke that ends low and begins high. We have a stroke that begins high and ends high. And we have a stroke that begins low and ends low. The colloquial terms for these are high ending low is called a zap. Low ending high is called a lift. High ending high is called an accent. Low ending low is called a grace note. All of our taps in this exercise will be grace notes. And you will have a series of any of the other 3, a zap, an accent, or a lift. If it's coming off a tap, to get prepared for an accent, you have to lift the stick. To make sure that you do not play a false accent after the accent, the final accent, you have to play a zap. And to play consecutive accents, you have to play an accent. Here we go. The first 2 measures are in 5/4. It is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. The first 2 measures are in 5/4. 1 measure right hand, 1 measure left hand. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and. One more time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 5 and. Notice that I am keeping my forearms relaxed and still, no major movement in my elbows, and it all comes from the ability for me to turn my wrist up and down, from a flat position, a neutral position, to down and up. The next 2 measures are in 4/4 and 3/4 time. And it's going to be 1/4/4 and 3/4 measure in the right hand, 1/4/4 and 3/4 measure in the left hand. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Accents and tap relationship. Taps are low, accents are high. Look now at the next one. You'll see that it is a 4/4 and a 5/4 measure in groupings of 2 measures with the right hand and the left hand. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and in the music it is written that these accents on the copies may be illegible. Make sure that you get those accents correct. The next grouping is found on the last measure of the first page and going into the second page. It again is 2 measures of right hand, 2 measures of left hand. All of these measures are in 4/4 time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1. This is a wonderful exercise. Learn it, get comfortable with it. Always go through your checklist. Are you holding your stick right? Do you have proper stick angles? Are you keeping a solid fulcrum? Remember, the stick can't be too tight, and are you holding on with the back end of the stick, but not holding tightly? The stick should be able to be released from the fingers in a very smooth and gradual motion, not in a sticky motion, because the fulcrum's too tight. And lastly, are you getting accents and taps? Are you getting the lift? Are you getting the zap? I hope this has been helpful. I hope you practice on this and get comfortable with it, and you'll learn about accents and tap relationships on snare drum.